A journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step. Lao Tzu. My friends, we see the stock market bounding up, both the S&P 500 and Nasdaq 100. Nasdaq 100 3%, S&P 500 2%. We see government bonds down 0.81%, gold up 0.35%, and Bitcoin up 6.35%. Now let's jump first into the S&P 500. Look at what went from a red down candle to a doji just 2 days in. It is a 5-day or weekly candle. The price percent oscillator still negative, but heading up. Derivative oscillator is still negative. Now, you remember when we had the weekly vertical crossover this last week, told you I was concerned that the derivative oscillator wasn't crossing at the same time. That lagging indicator wasn't flipping over. Well, we see what has happened as the week has started. Now, again, 2 days into a 5-day candle doesn't mean that this doesn't end up being a down week and that we have an immediate reversal of this down move, but keep in mind that we're 2 days into this. We'll continue watching. Look at the 2-day. It is not crossing over yet either. Now, the last 2-day candle ended Monday. This is just the Tuesday, so this is just 1 day of a 2-day candle, but it's a boomer. I mean, it's one of the biggest green candles we see going all the way back to the 8th of November. So again, pushing through that weekly trend line already. Price percent oscillator negative, but heading up. Derivative oscillator, which had been gaining downward momentum, losing it. And we see 2 days of up movement, getting much stronger on Tuesday. Stronger in the morning. Again, candle getting bigger in the afternoon, but not hitting the high of the morning. Price percent oscillator heading up. Derivative oscillator heading up. That's where we are on the S&P. Even more action on the Nasdaq 100, which we talked about how it had surprisingly crossed over going down on Friday. We have a green spinning top right now. It is a solid green, not an open box green. That means a slowdown in the down movement. You can see that long wick on the bottom showing how much price has retracted from that down movement. Derivative oscillator still negative. Price percent oscillator is just barely negative. So that is where we are on the weekly. We look at the 2-day. You can see where it's bounded up, pushed through that the 2-day down trend line. Price percent oscillator still negative, heading up a little more than flat is what I would say there. And the derivative oscillator looks like it's pairing off a little bit of downward energy. We look at the half day, and of course, we can see where things bounded down on Friday. Monday, about the same, slowdown in that down movement, and then up Monday afternoon, and then up Tuesday and Wednesday. We will, with this crossover on the half-day chart, and again, that's our weakest crossover, we will nonetheless go ahead and redraw that line. So that is where we are as we look at, and the reason I haven't redrawn this line yet is still don't really have much of a way to draw that, but it is still, we had that weekly vertical crossover going down, so we'll make sure to annotate that with our trend line. Now, let's look at 20-year bonds. They're down for the day, 0.81%. We see, again, so far this week, green up candle, not reaching the high of the prior week. Look at all the loss in energy on that price percent oscillator flattening. Derivative oscillator still gaining upward momentum. It is the leading indicator. It's a triple smooth version of the relative strength index, so it's oscillating still upward on that movement. Yes, and the 2-day, we can see where, again, Heikin-Ashi candlesticks have lost a lot of energy, literally drawing for the first day of this latest 2-day candle a very, very small red open box, which is a big slowdown in the up movement, almost negative, and wick on the top, wick on the bottom, price percent oscillator almost flat, derivative oscillator appears to be flat, and we can see a significant deceleration in up price movement. And of course, the half day, we can see we have a day and a half of down movement, piercing at the end of the day the 2-day trend line. And with that crossover, we will change our trend line on the half day. Derivative oscillator gaining downward momentum, price percent oscillator heading down with that crossover. So that's where we are on 20-year bonds. What about gold? Again, gold had been in strong down moves over the last 2 weeks in particular. This week, not reaching the low yet. Red down candle still drawing. Price percent oscillator still heading down. Derivative oscillator still positive and losing energy. We look at the 2-day, and again, we can see where we had all this downward pressure, and now we have the first green open box candle that's trying to draw since we had the last one back on Thursday, the 18th of November. Price percent oscillator still going down, but losing some of that downward energy. Derivative oscillator also negative, but losing downward energy. Half day, pretty much just moving along that prior trend line. It crossed over back in the afternoon on Friday, and it's just slowly tracking up. So we'll keep our eye on gold. Now, what's up with Bitcoin? Bitcoin rebounding after those big losses, particularly yesterday, 6.35% up for the day. Still lots of downward energy on Bitcoin. Price percent oscillator heading down. Derivative oscillator gaining downward momentum. Red down candle forming. Again, hitting the most recent low here lately. Not simply pairing where it was last week. We look at the 2-day, and we can see that still that energy, even with the up for the day, is still pushing down. Price percent oscillator heading down. Derivative oscillator about flat. We look at the half day. We can, of course, see that huge downer on Monday. And then on Tuesday, we can see where things are slowing down and then moving up. So again, Bitcoin recovering some, but again, as you guys remember, big hammer, double digits down yesterday. So we'll keep our eye on things, see how these markets continue to move. Again, we're just 2 days into a weekly 5-day candle, but that is where we are. Now, for those of you who like cryptocurrencies, I am seriously considering for our Patreon members adding in another program for the week, and I would love your feedback on it, where we would cover things like, besides Bitcoin itself, maybe the Bitcoin Strategy ETF, that is BITO. That is actually a Bitcoin futures ETF as it starts to grow and gets bigger. Oh, and the chart that we would actually use for doing all this, I'm going to use the special Bitcoin chart that we actually have for our Patreon members. We have this layout that we give all of them. So those of you who are interested in things like this, that's what we will be sharing. Cover things like the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which is a trust, not an ETF. The Ethereum, the Grayscale Ethereum Trust is another one that we'll cover. And you'll see how helpful this chart is. It uses a true strength index versus the price percent oscillator and the derivative oscillator. We also throw in there some moving linear regression lines and Bollinger Bands and all sorts of interesting stuff. Also be looking at things like transformational data sharing ETF that deals in the cryptocurrency market. This crypto fund BITW, which is interesting, it takes 10 cryptocurrencies and it weights them based upon the size of the investment in them. Other things like the the Reality Shares Nasdaq Next Generation Economy, which again, a lot of investment in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies there. The Innovative Transaction and Processing, making use of cryptocurrencies, that's another ETF. BITQ, which is the Industry Innovators in cryptocurrency. Also things like the Global X blockchain, companies that are investing in blockchain. Another one is the digital transformation ETF. Again, more companies in that cryptocurrency space. Crypto industry and digital economy, CRPT is another one. Of course, I talked about BITO, which is a Bitcoin futures ETF, and then Valkyrie Bitcoin strategy. So we've got a few charts to look over and interesting things to help you track. And again, learn to chart cryptocurrencies and crypto-related ETFs and trusts. So if you're interested in that, let me have your feedback. If you are a Patreon member or interested in becoming one, you can always become a Patreon member by following the link in the show notes. There are only a few spots left, so gobble those up. God bless my friends. All the best from the whole team at Charting Wealth World Headquarters.